Live from the hills of Malibu, it's the Nighttime Show. Today, with us, as always, our head writer and producer, Matt Walker. Yes! I am the host of the Nighttime Show, Stephen Kramer Glickman, and our guest today, you know him from the World Poker Tour, and his movie 7 Days to Vegas is on VOD and in theaters September 20th. Check your local listings. It's called 7 Days to Vegas. Ladies and gentlemen, Vince Van Patten.
Wow. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, buddy. How are you?
Great intro. Thank you so much. I'm good. Good. Very good.
This is very exciting. You have this movie coming out. This is a big deal. And it's a true story. It's based on a true story.
Yes.
And it's your true story.
Exactly. It's based on a true story about my poker game that I had in the 90s through 2008. And the game started at my father's backyard in the pool house, and it grew to be probably the biggest game in America at one time, poker game. And it's called 7 Days to Vegas because it's not about the poker game, this movie. It's about the bets we made, these crazy characters that I knew that were bigger than life. We would make bets on anything. And one of the biggest, craziest bets we ever made was that I couldn't walk from L.A. to Las Vegas in 7 days for $1 million. And they all came to watch and bet against me.
Wow,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, that's the concept, yes.
Oh, my
now,
God.
it's
So
based on the truth. But
250 miles.
280,
7 days,
280.
280, so that's 30 miles a day we're talking.
Average, you have to do 40 if you want
40
to
a
average
day.
out. Now, you can walk
Yeah.
or run. I mean, there was all kinds of different variables about it, but and the movie is about, it's like The Hangover meets The Sting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of twists and turns and a lot of laughs.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you, I don't want to know like how it ends. Of course.
No, you can't. No, you gotta see the
Now
movie.
I gotta see the movie. But now this was a group of you and some of your friends that you guys had formed to play poker. Who were some of these guys?
Well, in the movie, we change all the names and the characters are, sort of made up, fictionalized.
Yeah.
It's based on a lot of different people. But back in the day when we did have the game, my father used to have a game, and it was like Don Adams from Get Smart. Sorry about that, Chief. And John Huston, the famous director, and Gabe Kaplan, and all these, interesting people.
All the Hollywood poker elite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, I started playing poker with my father at age 15. He said, okay. And the game was big back then. And he said, okay, you're ready to play. You can play because I see you watching, and you can play. So I used to play in this game. And that's when I was, in the 70s.
So what kind of stakes are we talking in the 70s in this game?
In my father's game back in the 70s, you could win or lose $1,000, $1,500.
That's a lot of money for back
huge.
then.
That's big money.
Yeah.
And then my game, when we started in the 90s, it started out where you can win or lose a couple thousand, but it grew to be you can win or lose your house.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
type of
because
thing.
at that point you get to like
Wow.
the Larry Flint, the Jerry Buss type game going on where
Yeah.
they're betting hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I played a lot with Jerry Buss. He was fun to play with. All the different characters over the years, But the game got big. But this movie, 7 Days to Vegas, is based on the true story, but it's fictionalized as well. So,
Well, yeah, of course, you kind of have to add a little bit to that. And when it comes to side bets, there's a lot of weird side. I've heard. I know a couple guys who have done some side bets that are pretty bizarre. There was a guy I know who bet a fella $100,000 he wouldn't get a face tattoo.
Yeah.
And then he got one. Of course,
wow,
you know.
I love
There
that.
was a guy who did.
There's no winning that bet, by the way. You
Yeah.
get the 100 grand, you still have a face tattoo.
Yeah,
so
that's still bad.
You've lost.
I've heard of guys doing side bets about stripping naked and running into weird places. Like what kind of side bets were you guys betting on? What kind of stuff were you guys doing?
well, we used to have a routine thing. Before we used to play poker, usually there was a tennis court and a basketball court at everybody's mansion, whatever. And I would always make this stupid bet that I could throw the basketball into the net from half court on how many throws for, And in the beginning was I would get 10 throws to make it, And I'd be betting everybody $2,000, $5,000 here. So I'd have $30,000 actually before the poker game even started.
Wow.
And one night I realized I didn't make it. It was down to 5 throws because I was pretty good. And I could throw 1 out of 5. So that was the line, the over and under. And one night I realized I lost $40,000 before the poker game. I just missed everything. And I was like, everyone was laughing at me. And then we went on to play some poker after that.
Wow.
Oh my
But
God.
that was one of the things. I used to make bets that I could jump over a 10-foot chain link fence
That's
within,
that's
within
when,
4 seconds.
Like Steph Curry needs to
Boom.
get a Vince McPatten mask and go around places and be like, "Hey, I'll bet you, give me 10 throws and I'll make it 2, and then I'll just sink all of them and win a fortune." Yeah.
A chain link fence in 4 seconds. Can you get over? Now I couldn't do it in 40 seconds. But crazy bets, jumping off a pier blindfolded, in the middle of the night. I mean, and they'd all come out and watch you. So stupid bets, but the walk to Vegas in 7 days was the ultimate.
That's the
So this
ultimate.
you were doing Jackass, but for big money. Is what you were doing.
There you go.
Wow. Love that. I love that. So you're you've been married. How long have you been married to
Yes,
to your wife?
Eileen Davidson is my wife, and we've been married 17 years now.
She's a
congratulations.
terrific
She's in the
actress.
film. She's starring in the film with
Yeah,
me.
great actress. She's been around for
A lot of good people are in the film. Jennifer Tilly, Ross McCall, Don Stark, Jimmy Van Patten, my brother.
Yeah.
We play brothers in the film.
So Jennifer Tilly, who you probably know from the poker world.
Yeah,
That's how you met her. Yeah.
She loves poker, and she did a great little part for us. And she's funny, and she is her boyfriend's Phil Locke,
Yeah.
who's the Unabomber in
Yep.
poker, if you know poker at all.
Oh, yeah.
And he's also in the film. Phil Hellmuth is also in the
Okay.
film. Mike Sexton. So the big
So
poker
all the big
names
names.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of big names. A lot of big names in that.
Now, talking about poker, because I was telling Stephen on the way over that I used to watch poker back when I was in college, and we'd watch the World Series of Poker when it was on once a year. You'd watch the World Series once a year, and it's on for like a week on ESPN, a couple nights, and you don't know what anybody has on their hand, and you're watching, and you're like, okay, it's sort of interesting to watch. I'll just watch any sport. Then your show comes out, the World Poker Tour, and I remember this is the first time I remember, and it sort of revolutionized televised poker. Some genius, I don't know who it is, came up with the idea of having a camera on the table at everybody's seat so you could see the cards that they have, and then when you watch them play poker, you really get a sense for how they're doing. Like, you know who's bluffing instead of just the announcer being like, I think he's bluffing, but I don't really know. And then so the question I have about those, we know as viewers what the people have. When you're doing the announcing on that show, how much of that is stuff that you're doing while they're playing, and how much of it is just pre-recorded, like they film the thing, and then you go into a booth and you're like, okay, we're going to talk about this hand, and let's talk about playing it out and pretend we don't know how it ends because it's television.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, first of all, we've been doing the World Poker Tour season 18, coming into season 18.
Wow.
And my boss, the guy that created the World Poker Tour, is Steve Lipscomb. And he had the idea. He said, look, if we show these cards, it's going to be a great sport. No one believed him, but he winds up making a deal, gets on TV, and the rest is like, all of a sudden, exactly like you said, now you could see the cards. Now you see the genius behind poker.
Yeah.
It's a great, brilliant game.
Yeah.
And it explodes. And then the World Series did the same thing, and so they're huge too.
I think that is sort of it happened at the same time as the rise of online poker, and I think those two in combination took poker from being like this niche sport that was sort of played in Vegas and the clubs here in LA. It was the biggest poker town in the world, actually, Los Angeles, and then it took it and it made it this global phenomenon where then the money has just escalated and the people entering tournaments. I mean, the World Series used to be a couple hundred guys. Now you got 10,000 entries. It's
also,
crazy.
The movie, there's been a lot of movies about poker, like because of it. It's like it's really pushed that genre so that people are get very invested. You play poker. You play poker a
fair
little
amount.
bit.
A very significantly lower stakes than we've been talking about here on these bets.
Yes.
I go play the $100 table at the Commerce Casino because that's where my money line is. But
I'm a very bad gambler. I'm and by bad I mean if I win $5, I go, I won, and then I just run out of the casino screaming, and that's the end for me. Like I'm not good at hanging in there for too long because every time I lose, I'm not very good at that.
That's good because then you don't get hooked. You're not going to play much, which is great. Then you're
need
almost
the
even, which is good.
Now,
in the gambling world.
But like if you are betting and losing large amounts of money, is that ever taxing? Does that feel emotionally? Like how do you deal with?
Well, when I was having my game and the game got bigger and bigger, all of a sudden you're playing over your head. And the nights when you lose a big number, it's sickening, and you can't sleep for 2 days. You try to sleep, and then I had to drive my kids to school at 8 after playing till 7 o'clock in the morning. And you lose big numbers, and it's torturous actually. And you know what? To lose big money in a poker game is 3 times worse than when you win big money in a poker game. Because when you win, you just go, I'm terrific, and God, yeah, I really have the edge in this game, and that's good. Now what will I do with I'll put the money in here. You don't think about it. I mean, it's nice, but when you lose, it's a torture chamber. And it's always been that way. So eventually I couldn't take it. So I had to step away and just go back to broadcasting. I play poker now, but not for the big numbers. I was getting in over my head, and it's scary.
What do you mean when you say getting in over your head?
Taking losses where you just can't afford. So all of a sudden, then you're chasing it and go, will I ever come back and win? You just don't know. And it's not just poker that I love. I gambled on everything, the racetrack and all kinds of sports betting and all that. So I would have constant action all the time. I mean, I loved it. And that's part of this movie, 7 Days to Vegas. I show that that these gamblers, usually in poker movies and gambling movies, it's always this very, very dark, seedy side.
Yes.
And, are they going to come back? And there's some life and death situation.
Like Rounders or whatever.
Right.
It's got that feel. Yeah.
This film, 7 Days to Vegas, is more of showing the glory and the fun of when you're in the gambling world, betting for money that's a little over your head and the crazy bets you make and the characters you meet. And my whole life I've been gambling since I was 12 years old. And I've always enjoyed my life. It's a spice of life until it got too big. But before that, it's fun. And I wanted to show that in a film. I want, for the first time, a gambling film that shows the joy of the bets and the props and this different special life that these guys have and what can happen when it gets out of hand.
And it's interesting because we have a different attitude about gambling in America than the rest of the world, I think. Where and with the World Poker Tour, you travel the world, you go to Asia, you go to the UK, and in places like that, in the UK, they have a bookmaker on every corner for taking bets on everything. Like you can bet on who's going to win the presidency in America. In the UK, just you walk into a store and there's just a gambling place, and it's like part of their culture in a way. And you go to Asia and there's just like gambling is sort of more entrenched in their culture than it has been here, where we've made a lot of it illegal. And do you feel that, like, because of that, sort of the taboo nature of it, is that sort of part of the reason why like these portrayals of gambling on television and in the movies have always been sort of this dark, seedy underbelly, because we don't really accept it in the same way?
I know what you're saying. I think, now there's going to be more sports betting legalized in the United States, and people are just accustomed to that. They're just saying, look, if people like to gamble and have fun with it, let's make it legal. Let's tax it and make it legal. So we'll see what happens. But like you said, over in England, it's a lot more over there. But look, if you don't get out of control, it can be an enjoyable life. It's a social thing. You can go to the casinos or have a home game, and you can have some fun. And people that are very lonely can go to the casino and make new friends, and especially if you lose. And then it's that type of thing. So it's not. I think 3% get that addiction where it's a real problem. But
did you feel like you were on the edge of that 3% when you sort of had to pull back?
Yeah. Eventually, when my games got too big and I played over my head, I feel yes. And now for the last 10 years, I'm breaking away from it. I still love it, and I still do okay. In poker, I lose in everything else.
Yeah.
But it's like I always describe it as the needles coming out of my arm very slowly.
Yeah.
And eventually, you just don't need it anymore, which is interesting.
Matt, you and me are both stand-up comedians, and I know we both say a lot of things that are very offensive on a regular basis. Do you ever have trouble sleeping at night?
Yeah, not because of things I say, though. It's just because I have lousy pillows.
Oh, okay. So you don't have like a horrible feeling of guilt sometimes for the
Never.
awful things. Oh, that's nice.
Never. I'm proud of the horrible things that I say to people.
That's good. That's a good way to be. Sometimes I do have trouble sleeping, or I did have trouble sleeping until I got this brand new pillow.
What kind of pillow?
I mean, this is next level stuff, Matt. This is a pillow. You've never seen a pillow like this because until recently it did not exist. It's called the buttress pillow. And it is shaped like a butt, and it has little legs, and you're not going to believe this. You got to go check it out. Thebuttresspillow.com.
So it's like your face rests on a butt.
Your face is pressed into a butt crack while the legs support your neck and shoulders, basically. It
sounds comfortable.
It is very comfortable. It's ergonomic. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Ergonomic, functional, all natural, and it's absolutely beautiful. Check this out. This is from their website. Soft but supportive with the feeling of a butt. All right, and the sweet spot is between the thighs and the cheeks, which will gently cradle your head and support your neck. Great for side sleepers, back sleepers, and stomach sleepers. It's squeezable, slappable, face variable, relieves stress, from having a long, horrible day. What do you want to do at the end of a long day?
put your head in a butt.
That is 100% right.
Well,
you can dress it up. You can dress it down. You want to throw some PJs on it?
You convinced me, so where do I go get one of these?
You go to thebuttress.pillow.com, thebuttress.pillow.com. That's THEBUTTRESS pillow.com. Go to thebuttress.pillow.com, Matt, and get your sleep on. You'll have much better dreams. All right, let's get back to the show.
How did you become the voice of poker in that you and Mike Sexton are probably the two preeminent voice announcers of poker? I mean, you've been on my television hundreds of hours. I've listened to you talk about poker. So
I've heard your voice over the phone while talking to him in the background.
And I'm watching it, yes.
many times.
So how did that come about? Because, you said Jonathan Lipscomb, you said his name was right?
Steve Lipscomb.
Steve Lipscomb decides that he's going to create the show. He finally sells it to the Travel Channel initially, I think. And then they're like, we've got this show. How do you become the guy that he goes to say, hey, Vince Van Patten, you're the guy who should be talking about poker on TV?
Okay. I was an actor before that. For my whole life I've been an actor. I was a tennis professional as well. When I came back having poker games and stuff, I was still acting and doing something like that. 1999, they called me up for the World Series of Poker. And I did that event when you could not see the cards.
Yeah.
And Scotty Wynn won it, and we did it outside. And it was a good event, but like you said, people went, wow, he must have had a big hand. I think 14 people watched it, right?
Yeah.
So 2 years later, Steve Lipscomb comes around with this thing, and Mike Sexton helped him raise the money finally to get the World Poker Tour started. And then they needed a sidekick, they needed somebody else, and who else was there? Maybe me. So they came to me and said, would you want to do this? I said, oh, gosh, a poker show? Yeah, it'll probably last, 2 shows. Who knows? Did the show, and it becomes a big overnight sensation. Yeah. So been on ever since. And I never thought, who thought? We didn't think so. We did not think it was going to become this explosion, and it just happened out that way.
That's a really wonderful thing when something like that happens, and you're not expecting it. You don't know, and just like a lot of great things in life, like you kind of roll the dice and take a chance on stuff.
Have there ever been times where you're going and you're broadcasting at a tournament, like you're in the Caribbean or whatever? Like, do you feel like, hey, I should be out there playing in this game, or is it more like the stakes are so high because those are $10,000 buy-in games? They're not cheap to get into.
Well, it's good because Mike Sexton and I both couldn't play for the first 10 years on the World Poker Tour. Our boss said, no, I don't want you guys playing. It would look bad. And then finally he just said, go ahead. And who cares at this point? And so Mike plays a lot of tournaments. I'm more of a cash game player. I don't play many tournaments. But Mike has done very well. He's made a couple final tables. I think he won one. And then Tony Dunst, who's now our co-commentator because Mike left a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And now Tony has won one World Poker Tour event. So he's a great player. But but in the beginning we were saying, oh my goodness, there's so much money and there's so much at stake. Why can't we play? We were dying to play.
Yeah.
But no longer.
Okay, so when you're doing these shows, I think we sort of glossed over this earlier. You film them in advance, or are you doing live announce somewhere in a room like a mile away so they can't get any advantage? Like, how does that work, like the practicalities of doing the announcing on it?
Well, now we're at Esports Arena. We're in that room, and Mike and Sexton and I were always in the room.
Okay.
But we couldn't see the cards when the tournament's actually going.
Okay.
All right, so we're not seeing the cards. We're just speculating. They're going to use some of that. Then we come back 3 months later. They cut it together, and that's when we see the cards, and that's when we
then
give that performance.
Add additional stuff.
And
Got
so
it.
you do both. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I was wondering how that worked because I was like, you can't.
Yeah. Because if we say, "Oh my goodness," the players would hear it and then realize, "Oh my," and that could.
They'd hear the excitement in your voice or whatever, even if you don't mention what they have. It would be unfair advantage.
Yeah.
Now, have you, when it comes to betting and to things like this, have you ever known anybody? And we don't have to call them out, but have you ever known anybody that's cheated on a bet? Have you ever witnessed something like that, or witnessed something go wrong?
Well, in poker, you have to know about this type of thing because it could happen. I'm not saying, I mean, it's the slim chance at home games it could happen. And over the years in my game, I caught 2 or 3 cheating rings and had to break it up. And even when you tell them, I mean, they have codes, they have verbal codes, they have signals, all kinds of sophisticated things. And they will try to steal from your game. So you got to be very careful. My father, who's from New York and learned everything about, cards and cheats and all, taught me when I was 14 years old. He says, I know you love the game. I know you love to gamble. Got to know these things. This is a marked deck. And he showed me everything about that. So I knew it. I knew all kinds of codes and stuff like that. So that's a big advantage to have if you're running a game, if you're having a game.
Is the sharing of information, that's probably the most common way that they try to cheat?
Well, it happens mostly in high-low games, which we used to play a lot more back then. Because one partner will go high, the other will go low. And
Yeah, and just
it's
for
a
anybody
huge
listening,
advantage.
if you don't know what a high-low game is, then basically you declare whether you're going to try to have the highest hand at the table or the lowest hand at the table, and both of those win a share of the pot. Because it's not as common a game that you might see. Yeah.
So that could happen. I mean, teams like that, or just mark cards. I mean, just if I'm reading those cards, I know what everyone has. I can't lose basically in the long run. So things like that. But it's a very rare thing. So a lot of poker, most poker is very ethical.
Yeah.
And all the players I played with were all cool, and we had fun.
Have you ever seen a bet go south for somebody where you're like, oh no, this guy just put himself in a really bad position? Have you ever seen something like that happen?
What you see over the years, I mean, you see some terrible plays. You know, you see people mucking their hands with the best hand, and they threw it in there. And you went, "What did you do?" "Oh, I had the best." "Oh, it's too late." You know, that type of thing. You know, for good money. So,
what about on a side bet? Have you ever seen a side bet go terribly wrong?
Well, the thing about side bets,
that's kind of the point, is that they go terribly wrong.
it could go wrong, but usually you have a settlement. You can settle out. So if you're doing a bet and it's something over. In 2 hours, I can do 400 push-ups or whatever it is. You know, within an hour, the guy can go, okay, I'm going to give you 1/3, get me out of this bet.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. The guy can go, okay, I think you're going to make it. I'll give you 80% right now. So you could do that.
Oh, okay.
Which is fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
some bookmakers even do that because I remember when Leicester City won the English Premier League in England, they were like 5,000 to 1 underdogs or something. Like they had never won anything, and they win the championship there. And there's like 3 games left in the season, and the bookmakers were all like contacting the people who had money on that, and they're like, "What if we gave you 75% right now? Because they could still lose the last 3 games and they won't win." But I don't think they got any takers because they were just like, "No, I'm gonna ride this out and get all my money."
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, what are you watching on TV these days?
Lately, I've been watching a lot of astronomy videos on YouTube.
Astronomy videos?
Yeah,
Why are you watching astronomy videos on YouTube?
I like space.
Well, if you like space, then you're going to love Bliss Lights. Bliss Lights is absolutely amazing. They have this thing called the Skylight, and it is a laser light show that you put in your living room. It shines up on the ceiling, and then basically you have the whole universe just shining right above you. You don't have to watch TV to look at the stars in the sky. You don't have to go camping to look out at galaxies. You can literally sit in your living room and watch the Skylight from Bliss Lights.
That sounds amazing.
It is amazing. These are the guys who do the laser light shows for all the theme parks, and now you get to have a laser light show in your living room. All you have to do is go to blisslights.com. That's blisslights.com. I'm talking about blisslights.com. This is it's like, forget a nightlight, all right? You got a nightlight for your kids, throw that in the trash, okay? This right here is the next level, and it is absolutely incredible. Go to blisslights.com. We're talking about blisslights.com. Oh, and use promo code NIGHTTIME for 10% off your order. That's NIGHTTIME for 10% off. Come on, go use it right now. blisslights.com. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we're gonna, since you are an actor and you've acted a great deal in your life, we're gonna throw an acting question at you.
Don't get me
Get ready for this. Get ready for this.
Sure.
You ready? According to IMDb, do you know what your first credit is on IMDb?
Bonanza, 1964. No.
That's close. It is The Young Lawyers, 1969.
Oh my gosh, I was 11 years old. Something
Were
like
you
that.
really?
Yeah, The Young Lawyers.
How did you?
Were you a young lawyer at 11? Because that's a good show.
No, but when I came in out here as a child actor in 68 or 69, 69 it was, I did every show, every one of those shows. Bonanza, Three Bonanzas, High Chaparrals, The Young Lawyers.
You've got a
Courtship of Betty's Father. I mean, all these shows as a kid actor.
Ironside, Cannon, Adam 12.
Oh, all the good shows back then.
Scooby Doo. You did a lot.
Scooby-Doo.
You did a lot.
I did Scooby Doo, and that was for Hanna-Barbera, and Joe, Mr. Barbera, I believe, came out the front of the office and said, "Oh, hi, young man. You must be Vince. Come on in. We're going to do some voiceovers today."
Oh, my God.
Yes. And then when I work at Walt Disney, the Disney studio, and Walt Disney was actually on the lot.
No. Wow.
Yes. And I'd see him walking into the big commissary, the very private one, and he'd do the same thing. "Oh, well, you must be a child actor. Nice to see you. Now run along. You know, so it was great. These great characters.
That's
that were
amazing.
very exposed then. I would see them on the lot.
Because your father was
Extraordinary. I love that.
I saw Alfred Hitchcock on the Universal.
Wow. No, you
yeah,
did not.
Yeah,
Did you really?
I was under contract at 13 years old for Universal, and he used to have his.
You were
he
under
was there,
contract?
and back in the day, that's what they used to do.
when they still had
And
it.
I was under contract for $350 a week. That was it.
Wow.
It was considered pretty good money back then. And we used to see Alfred Hitchcock walk to the commissary every day. You know? Crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
cool.
That's
fun.
amazing.
Yeah, no, because your father, Dick Van Patten,
Yeah.
great actor who we've all seen in Spaceballs and Eight Is
Love
Enough, you know, to the things that come to mind. Did you grow up around a lot of celebrity as a child,
yeah.
like where they were just hanging out at the house and he was friends with all of those guys?
My father was washed up when we lived in New York until 1969. He did I Remember Mama in the 50s, and for 10 years he couldn't get arrested. He was washed up and didn't know what he was going to do. He started getting hot again.
Was he working a regular job during
He was
that time?
trying to
or-
get plays in New York. He got a play called, I forget, but he gets this play and it brings him out to L.A. in 1969, and he starts getting hot again, and they started putting him in series, and he gets something on with Don Adams called The Partners, and then Don Adams starts inviting our whole family over to Don Adams' house in Beverly Hills with a tennis court on Sundays, and Don had friends like Jimmy Caan and Peter Falk, and all these big celebrities. Now we're hobnobbing with them. We would play tennis with Caan. He'd be making bets against us, but we were pretty good in tennis, very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to know everybody in that realm.
Wow.
Back in the
And
day,
you were so good at you were a professional tennis player.
Yeah, I was top 25 in the world. I played on the circuit for 10 years after my acting. This was in the 80s. Yeah.
So how old were you when
so
you were
cool.
pursuing tennis? Like 18?
Yeah. I was went on the circuit when I was 19, and then I retired when I was about 29.
So
30.
you were playing poker at night while playing tennis during the day? Is that
when
sort of
I
what
played
happened,
tennis on the circuit, I kind of gave up the poker for sure. Before that I was playing, but then when I came
gambling
back,
sort of is considered a taboo among a lot of.
listen, I wanted
athletes.
I used to bring my poker chips on the ATP circuit. Couldn't get a game. I had my poker chips. I had the cards. I said, "Let's play some poker, guys," but no one really bit.
In that time, it wasn't a thing that much. I mean, now you'd probably have no problem getting a game going.
Now, exactly right. Yeah. But then I came back after that in my 30s, started acting again, and that's when I started my new poker game. And then this is how it grew. And now,
yeah, you started acting. I mean, like if you everyone's got these jumps, in their career where they take time to go do other things and they work on other stuff, and it is neat to kind of look through and be like, oh my God, like you went off, and when you went off to go play tennis, like you focused your whole life on tennis. And in poker, it seems like the same kind of thing. Like when you worked on, it's like when you work on something, you put everything into it, and you become like one of the best at that thing. That's a very special thing.
Well, I think you're onto something, because not that I always succeed in everything, but I did well in tennis, and then after that was over, I realized, oh, okay, I'll try acting, but they weren't inviting me back. I wasn't getting many jobs. So I said, okay, I'll try this poker thing, and poker went very well for me, and I learned everything about poker, every nuance, every Doyle Brunson's book, read every page. I mean, I studied, I listened. I mean, when you start doing well in a game like poker, you love it.
Where were you playing at that time? Was it mostly home games,
home
or were you
games, and
playing
also casinos too?
Like Commerce and the Bicycle?
Bicycle Casino.
Yeah.
That hyper focus, though, the ability to focus in on something and then become very, very good at it. That's not very common. Like we don't run into that a lot. Like it seemed, and it's where does that come from? Is that from your father? Was it your mother, someone related to you that you watched who was very, very good at something, and you just watched them?
Great question. I think my father, taught us when I was a kid actor. He said, know your lines. If you want to be an actor, know your lines and just be real. Just be real, and you show up early. Never be late. Never be late. Get there early. Never distract the director. I mean, he gave us all these rules, taught us everything about being on the set and how to be a professional. So I think I was a professional at a very young age. So when I go into something else, I try to be as professional as possible and learn everything about it.
It's funny. Many years ago, I worked on this Broadway show, and I was very new to it. And my I'll never forget my call time. We should say this to stay because we were just reviewing this story the other day and talking about it, and it's a funny story. But Matt and I have been friends for what 14 years,
15 years,
15 years now.
And, we've known each other. We're doing stand up in bowling alleys and video stores.
Oh man,
parking lots. Anywhere you could do stand up.
Well, man, we did stand up everywhere you could possibly do it. And when I got cast in this big Broadway musical, it was Shrek the musical
as Shrek.
Fantastic.
And I was
no makeup needed.
No makeup needed. Very funny. Yeah, so I'd never done anything big and professional.
You
before.
were answering phones at the Comedy Store.
Wow.
That was your job.
I was the doorman at the Comedy Store and the phone operator there, and making $5 an hour, and then I went from that to living on 52nd and 5th Avenue in New York City, and it was a big change. So I called Matt and I said, "Hey, I have this big life change happening in my life. I'm going to be doing this big thing. I need you to keep me grounded, okay? So I'm going to call you specifically to keep me grounded because everyone else is going to be kissing my ass in New York. I know that's going to be happening, so just keep me grounded." And he was like, all right. And so what happened was I get out to New York, and I'm working with like Jeffrey Katzenberg and David Geffen and Sam Mendes and all these amazing people, and it's big. It feels great, and everyone's being so nice. And I call Matt, and I go, "Oh, my God, this is such a huge thing in my life. This is an amazing, amazing thing that's happening." And he said to me, "No, just remember this. No matter how good you do in this show, your father still won't love you." That's what he said to me, and I was like, "Oh, you son of a bitch!" And it like brought it all. It was like, "All right, okay," kicked me right back down wherever I was, yanked me back down. But the one of the things that doing that show did for me was. Our call time every day was 8:00 in the morning, and so I would show up at 8:00 in the morning. Everyone else would show up at 8, and I would show up at 8. I have my breakfast there, whatever. And the director, after about a month of doing it, pulled me aside, like maybe a couple of weeks, pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, I noticed you're getting here at 8:00 in the morning," and I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's not what time you should be here," and I was like, "Oh." I thought our call time was 8. He was like, "Yeah, the cast call time is 8, but you're the lead on this show. You need to be here at 7." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He was like, "You should always be here early, warm up, get ready, so when everyone arrives, you're welcoming the whole cast."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then so then I tried to one up him, and I arrived at 6 in the morning, and the doors were locked. So I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." So 7 a.m. But it reminded me of something where it was like, it made me realize something, which is you don't always know the level of professionalism that you have to be at until you're at it, and then someone will tell you, "This is how this works. Never be late. Always show up on time. Always be professional. Always do this. Always do that." And it helps you hyper focus and be better at what you do.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you about this movie, because 7 Days to Vegas, great title, by the way.
Yes.
Now you produced this movie,
Wrote it. With
and you
my
wrote
buddy
it.
Steve Alper, who's a writer. We wrote it together. I produced it, acting in it, and what else?
Do you play yourself in this movie?
I play. I don't call myself a different name, fictionalized name.
Yes.
Yeah. But I basically
You're the guy walking to Vegas.
I did make that bet. Yeah.
So how do you get inspired to write this movie? What comes as the inspiration to write a movie?
Okay, I did not want to write this. No, I've written a couple of the things. We produced a couple of the movies over the years and wrote and produced. And but I wanted to step away from all of that. I was bored with that. I was just doing my World Poker Tour. I'm happy. And then my wife said, we saw a movie about Hollywood people that wasn't very good. About 6 years ago, we had big ambitions, and I said, I love the idea about Hollywood movies. She goes, "Well, you've got to write your movie." I went, "Oh, no, don't tell me that." She goes, "Yes, you have to write your movie. It's too good." So we sat down, me and my buddy. I always like to write with somebody, bounce things off.
Yeah,
so I
sure.
brought Steve Alper, and he's terrific. And it took us a couple of years for many different drafts, and we get it done, and we raise the money, and that's how it happened. And
wow.
Yeah, but I love writing. I love sitting in a room, and I love creating and bouncing things off. I do love that. I get a real thrill out of that. When I'm acting, I'm kind of bored on the set. You get a little sleepy because your scene's not coming up. But I swear, when I'm writing, the day goes by like that. which is great.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
love that.
And what's great with writing too is like you get a real sense of accomplishment when you finished a scene or you finished a page or like I got another page done, you know, and it feels so good. So writing something like this, especially writing with a friend, like that's a wonderful thing. And he's written a bunch of stuff. He's been around and
He's terrific.
been,
and you have a lot of laughs and it's great fun.
Where did the budget come from? Like, how much was the budget for this? Is it
not
okay
supposed to say, what the budget is until later on because
I
we're coming out.
How did you raise the money? Who did you go to?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be easy. It was not. I raised money 20 years ago for a film, and it was easy, But now it's very tough. And so eventually you lower your budget to try to get it to make it happen, and eventually,
because now it's like it's not. Back in the day, it was like, oh yeah, we'll have theatrical distribution. We'll get a distribution company to do this, or it'll come straight out to video. Home video at the time with Blockbuster and stuff like that.
That's right.
They would buy a whole bunch of stuff knowing that even if it comes out and wins some awards, it's going to get distribution. Now it's like with Netflix and with all these things, there's a million different ways it can go.
Well, we got a company to finally bite, so it wasn't independent money. We got a company to do it, and then they're no longer with us, so we had to take it over. But hey, it's coming out iTunes. You can already pre-buy it now on iTunes. I know it comes out in a few days, but you can pre-buy it, and it's doing quite well in there. And it'll be everywhere, Amazon and so nationwide in certain theaters. So it's exciting. 7 Days to Vegas. I hope people can watch it.
I'm sure people will.
It sounds so fun.
That's really cool. Before we...
That sort of has like a mad world kind of feel to the description of it.
Yeah.
I like to describe it as The Hangover meets The Sting.
Yeah.
And... it's going to be good. I hope you guys see it.
I love it. Hey, Matt, let me ask you something. This time of year, it's starting to get a little cold. It's heading into the winter months. How do you feel about the winter months?
I'm not a fan. I'm cold. I'm cold in July, let alone in October.
Then I've got something that you're going to absolutely love. Yo Shirt, the company that has brought you these like really, really cool shirts and socks and all sorts of stuff.
They've got that app. You can upload your own images and get stuff printed.
Upload your image and get it printed right there, and you can do one-offs. They're so cool. They make so much cool stuff. But they invested in this technology that has created Sherpa blankets that are just extra plush. They're absolutely gorgeous, and they feel so nice to the touch. You have one. I got one for you.
Yeah.
Of your
really
face.
Soft.
It's your face.
It is my face. I'm not a blanket on my bed, which is weird, but it's very soft.
You know what? Just as a quick side note, at LA Comic-Con, we had a couple of these made, one for each of us with our artwork of our faces on it. And I gave one to Mike Black, who has been on our show. He's our announcer on the show. And Mike Black was so tired at LA Comic-Con after working so hard for 3 straight days on this thing. We found him fast asleep in a chair with his blanket of his face wrapped around him. And I have never seen a cuter 40-year-old man in my life. Go to Yo Shirt on your phone. Go to the Google Play Store. Get it there. Go to it on the iPhone. You can get it there, or on an iPad. Upload it, just
Android
play
as well?
with it. Android, everywhere. It's available everywhere, and just go and experiment and play with this thing. But I'm telling you right now, these Sherpa blankets are absolutely incredible. You should get one. They're gorgeous. They're going to keep you warm, Matt. They're going to keep you warm.
What if they want one of your face?
If you want one of my face, you can grab the artwork from my Instagram and drop it right onto it, and I'll tell you what, you'll end up with get to sleep with my big old giant hairy face. So that's what you want out of your life. I mean, congratulations to you. You're making good choices. That's all I can say. So go to YoShirt.com. Check it out. YoShirt on all the app stores. YoShirt.com.
Yep.
I do have 1 or 2 quick questions before we wrap up. Your wife is a terrific actress. She's on been on a soap opera for a very long time.
She's got a couple Emmys for the Young and the Restless, and then she did the Housewives of Beverly Hills a few years back for a few seasons, and she had some good fights in that.
That's amazing, hilarious.
So how much of that was real?
That's it really is real.
Okay, so all right.
But she stepped around it, and so eventually she couldn't take it. It was like my poker. Eventually, you got to go walk away.
Well, also
So
because
she walked
if
away.
you're not the crazy one on that show, then you're sort of ignored. Like, they don't want you that much. If you're not the one fighting and doing all the crazy stuff, then they're kind of like,
to someone's house. Yeah.
They do open the bottle of the bottles of wine get opened up pretty quickly.
Pretty
over
liberally.
the producers. That's all I can say.
I know we know some people who have been on those like fantasy island shows. You know, the shows where they like put a bunch of people
we
together.
We had a guy on a podcast once who was on The Bachelor, and he said they put him in a hotel room for like a week with no TV, no access to newspapers, no access to the internet. Couldn't do anything for a week. And then they get him liquored up and then just throw him on this show. So they're just like, they haven't been around any human beings, no human contact, anything. And then they're like, they're just like wild animals being released because like they don't know what the hell's going on. Like it's they know how to amp people up for those shows.
They really do.
Yeah.
Listen, by the way, I wanted to say this is also the sweepstakes that you can actually win from clubwpt.com.
Oh,
and that's with the World Poker Tour, Club WPT, and people are going to win prizes to come to the premieres and all that stuff
awesome.
too. So check it out, clubwpt.com.
I love that.
For 7 days to Vegas. Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Do they win 7 days in Vegas, or does it take?
A few days.
Wait,
because
you put
one
them on
of
a
the
Greyhound?
premieres is in Vegas. We're going to do one over there.
Or do you put them on a Greyhound so it takes 7 days to get to Vegas? Because that would be
No, we're flying them. Believe it or not.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Are you going to do a premiere here in LA? Are you going to
LA, New York,
screen it?
yes,
Yep.
absolutely. In Chicago, Richard Roper loves the film. He's going to help
great.
champion it, and he loves the film. So Chicago as well. So we'll be bouncing around for the next 2 weeks.
Now, when you were doing a lot of crazier betting stuff, was your wife or was she around for that? Was she there?
Yeah,
to see that
Eileen's
stuff
been
happen?
around and seen it all. You know, when I had a bad night, I didn't say a word, okay? But she could tell because you're coming in late and you're not in a good mood. But, you know, even when I won, I wouldn't celebrate this. So you usually, when the wife says, well, how did you do? You said, I broke about even. But that lasted for about 2 years. Then the rest of it, she goes, what is this even stuff? What are you talking about? There's something going on.
I was always taught.
Yeah.
I was always taught when it came to poker that the real way to evaluate what you're doing is not so much on the money wins or losses, but on how you played the hands. So if you play the hand correctly,
Take that to the bank.
regardless of the
Yeah.
outcome.
Good
But I mean, I'm playing at much lower stakes. You know, I'm not paying my bills on it. But I mean, that's one way to think about it. It's
That
like, you know,
is.
did you do the right thing?
I'd rather be wrong and get the money. Eileen, here's the great thing about Eileen, too. Here's the great thing about Eileen, too.
Yeah.
She is, who knew? But she loves to gamble, too. So she found out early on. I play poker. She takes a little piece of my action. I sports bet. We're betting football. She goes, I want half the action. I said, you got it. So we're betting with the bookies, and we got every football game. She's got half the action. She's a degenerate. Who knew? But I'll tell you something.
My God.
It's fun. It's fun to have action with the wife in gambling
Yeah.
if she can take it. And she can. She's a great sport. So I said, honey, we're stuck such and such. I have to pay the book. She says, okay. She's like, who is this woman? She's fantastic.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I always heard. I think it was Artie Lang used to say this, where he'd be like, "Hey, you don't care about the Jets playing the Browns tonight? How about this? How much money do you have in your banking account? Oh, $2,000 in your checking account. Bet $6,000 on the Jets to win tonight. You'll really care about that game if you do that. You know, that's how you're really going to care.
That's a way to know. Yeah. Absolutely.
One last thing on poker.
Go ahead.
So tournament play is different than cash game play, obviously, because you're playing for different stakes and you've got a different set of money that's on the line, and like you can, it's not a matter of like you've got to win this one hand or you're out. Like you can lose money and buy back in and things like that. Do you find that there are a lot of great cash game players who just avoid tournaments altogether? Like
For sure.
you see,
For sure. That's kind of me. I do very well in cash games. There's a lot of reasons why. You can talk, especially at a home game. You can talk to the players more. You can make deals in the cash game.
Yeah.
I was very good at making deals in the cash game. Tournaments, you can't do that. They've taken all the fun things.
yeah, you can't be like, let's run it 3 times and best 2 out of 3 or whatever. Yeah,
Right, exactly. So it's different skills for tournament play and cash game play. And the more tournaments are getting stricter and stricter, so it's taken some fun out of it, I believe. I mean, gosh, when I used to play the cash games at the casinos and at Horseshoes, Binions, and Bellagio, we had cash. We had stacks of hundreds in front of you. That was fun.
Yeah.
Not just chips, but there'd be,
big pile
counting
of cash is
the
fun.
hundreds, the C notes. Okay, 2,000. I'm putting that. I mean, that was fun to win cash at these tables. No longer. You can't do that. So, very different games, and a lot of great tournament players are not good cash game players. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now, I've also heard that probably the greatest poker player in the world is probably somebody who we've never heard of in the general public and probably keeps a very low profile and just wins a ton of money off tourists in Vegas, and they just suck it up at some high roller tables. Like, are there guys that you know that are great players who win a fortune who none of us know watching poker on TV? Like, are there guys like that out there?
I think there's got to be now. There's got to be some secret players out there. The games have gotten so much bigger. I'm sure the home games and these huge games, they might be playing for big, big bucks. And I'm sure there's some good pros that go under the radar and playing those games and maybe winning.
Scotty Nguyen put on a fake mustache and just walked in.
But you'd be surprised. A lot of the great players that everyone said, oh, this is a great player. This is a guy that has this many things and rings and such.
Wins all the bracelets. Or whatever,
you know what? They're not winning that much anymore. You know, it's a streaky game. You can go 2 years without winning and you can go broke and you can't get a entrance a fee, but you can't raise the money to get back in.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, because over the long haul, skill matters a great deal. But poker, the sessions are short-term games. So, like, if you go out for a night and you're playing for 5 hours, like, that's not enough time to overcome somebody's random luck necessarily. So, over the long haul, you'll win. But, I mean, you could just run into bad luck for a while and lose your whole bankroll. If
Absolutely. And they used to, now everybody's pretty good. Everyone knows how to play now. Yeah. So you can't. There's no guarantee. I don't care if you're 4% better or 5% better. A lot of the young pros like to think they're so great, and then they're not, and they disappear. And a couple of years ago, they have to go back to their hometowns. That happens out there. So the idea is maybe to play in a softer game, be the best player at the table. You'll have a better chance of winning in the long run.
What's the most amount of money you've ever seen somebody win at a poker table?
Well, in tournaments, it's huge. In cash games, I've seen people win in the hundreds of thousands.
Wow,
I've seen it. Yeah.
And then,
and is that mostly in like sort of underground home games, or do they play for that kind of money at a casino? Because
sometimes they play in casinos.
Because if you're at the bike and they've got like the high roller room and you're in there, they're still taking their rake. So do you feel like there's more money coming off the table, so it's better to play in a home game for that kind of money? Like, do they do that?
Maybe it's better, but I played in Bobby's room once. Bobby's room is in Bellagio, and that's considered the highest casino poker game in the world. And they're playing for numbers, hundreds of you could win or lose $500,000 to $1 million in a day in some of those games. Yeah. So that's very exciting.
What's the average pot size on there? Like, are they 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand a pot?
I'd say that, and then they go up to hundreds of thousands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the game can be as big as you want it to be, but it's very tough to sustain it. I don't care how good you are. Poker's tough. Now, don't forget, my movie is not just poker.
Yeah, of course.
It's about a poker game, but it's really about the people and the fun and 7 days.
Well, I think
to
that's
Vegas
more interesting. That's one thing
and crazy bets. Really.
That's one thing I think that the World Poker Tour really helped revolutionize is they made the people playing the game an interesting part of it. Like, you talked about Phil Locke, the Unabomber. Yeah. Like, he's a character like that as a human. He's interesting to watch on TV. But people became fans of specific poker players, which is a weird thing to be a fan of. Like why would you be like, oh, I like this guy playing poker? Like, he's playing poker. It's not like he's shooting. He's not shooting half court.
The great thing about it, though, what I respect about poker players and players that are playing for big money, especially cash games, is they're playing for their own money. Yeah. And they've got to be able to pull the trigger. I mean, they're pushing big bets. Yeah. I mean, that's genius. That takes a lot of guts to put your own money out there when you can't really afford it. Some of them can, some of them can't. Yeah. And to make those kind of moves, that's impressive. And I think people see that on TV and they go, oh, okay, I totally respect that.
Well, I love that. And I think it's going to be really fun for people to watch, the inside track of that in 7 Days to Vegas.
And then how that leads to these other crazy bets and what they do and stuff. That sounds so much fun.
Betting men and betting people doing, betting weird bets and trying to, have fun with each other while betting on bizarre stuff with each other. I mean, I watched the trailer. It is so funny. And it just immediately made me kind of think like, oh yeah, this is the kind of, This is what it's like to be betting with your friends and trying to outdo each other and come up with weird stuff, and it looks hilarious.
And by the way, just a note for anybody that watches the World Poker Tour on TV, Vince's hair is just is impressive in person as it is on TV.
It is very
amazing head of hair.
Head of hair.
We're jealous of the head of hair.
Head of hair on this guy.
Fantastic.
7 Days to Vegas is going to be on VOD and in theaters September 20th. So check your local listings to get to the theater and go and make that happen. Vince Van Patten, it is an honor honor. Your house is gorgeous. You're an amazing and gorgeous man. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
Thanks
for being here.
How can people find you on the internet? Do you have a Twitter? You use the Instagram, any of that stuff?
Oh yeah, I have Twitter. I don't know what the code is, but I'm old.
So don't bother.
But 7 Days to Vegas. If you can follow 7 Days to Vegas, or go to clubwpt.com to check out the movie. And just a delight talking to you guys.
Okay.
It was
Well,
wonderful.
thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful day.
Stand